Hello and welcome to episode 110 of the Board Game Barrage podcast. With me, as always, are my co-hosts, Kellen the Red Tank,
Yes,
Neelan the Orange Tank.
Hello.
I am the Superior Tank, Mark the Green Tank. What?
you said superior, but then referred to yours.
It's provable. It's mathematically provable. On today's show, we are going to be talking about games that we love, but there's just one thing. There's
One
tiny thing, one small issue. So we're going to be doing that a little bit later. But before we get into our topic, let's talk about games that we've been playing.
Is there a space joke?
Was there a space joke?
One small step
for games. One
game
giant
con.
leap for game con. Yeah, perfect.
That-
Glad you brought that up.
That tracks, right?
Yeah.
It's
a one-for-one analogy.
and then you'll just kind of, as if I had said it
Off the cuff.
at the right time.
Right, exactly.
Perfect.
So as long as that time comes up, we'll be fine.
Great.
All right. So, Kellen, what have you been playing? Games I'm talking about.
Board games.
Yeah.
I wanted to give an update on a small card game that we really liked last week. Krass Kariert. Concordia. I don't know. We don't know how to say it.
I
one-
definitely don't. Anybody who's listened to last week's episode knows that I do not know how to say it.
So this is a small box card game where you are just trying not to lose, and you can't rearrange the cards in your hand. It is so good, but we got to play it some more, and we played it at 5, and it's not so good at 5.
Yeah.
The game, for me, is a huge example, or perhaps the best example I can think of in recent memory, where your strategic options become more limited and the chaos increases at 5 players to the tune that, well, I haven't left myself a note in the box, but I actually think I'm going to say, like, don't play this at 5.
Oh, really?
Because at 4 players, you get 10 cards in your hand, as opposed to the 7 cards that you get in your hand with 5 players. And so in a 5-player game, you almost have 1 or 2 meaningful decisions to how your hand will cascade downward.
Yeah.
But in a 4-player game, you have 10 cards, and there's a lot more options as to how that could play out. Like, take this 1 card out, and then there's those combos. Take these 3 cards out, and then this happens. Krass Kariert, who can say what we call it?
The Germans.
The Germans,
Nice.
the Germans could say, is so good, but it is so good at 4 players.
Yeah, I didn't have as big a problem, but in retrospect, and especially in the way you described it, you both have less options because you have less cards in hand, and also because there are more players, it takes longer to get to your turn, so more things would have changed. There's less, even though it's not a heavily strategic game, it is more tactical. The strategy is lessened because it takes 1 full player longer to get to you.
Mm-hmm. I think the 7 to 10 hand difference is massive because with a hand of 10 cards, that you just see so many more opportunities for building nice runs and collections.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Another game that I wanted to talk about, we had a chance, and by the time you hear this, unfortunately, the Kickstarter will have ended, but the sequel 1.5 version of Chaosmos, we got to try the expansion with the designer at the local Strategicon. Chaosmos is a very strange, unique game of essentially capture the flag. It feels a lot like, and the way that I've described it previously, is like a different game mode for Cosmic Encounter, where there is a card that says Dark Ovoid, there's a card that says Ovoid, and these are item cards that you have in your hand. And at the end of the game, whoever has the right Ovoid wins the game. That's the game. And you could start the game with the right card in your hand. And so what you're doing is you're looking for a cipher. So there's a card somewhere on the board hidden in these envelopes for each planet, and it says the dark ovoid is real, or it says the ovoid is real. And finding that piece of information unlocks the game, because you may be holding on to this ovoid card, but it's actually meaningless. You just don't know it because you haven't found the cipher. It is such a unique beast. I know we did an episode on most unique games or something of the equivalent, and Chaosmos was probably my number 1 example.
Yeah.
Because it's not super well known, but it does deliver an experience that you do not get anywhere else. In a traditional Euro game or in any game, it has this sort of acclimation building phase where you are setting up for something else. And in Chaosmos, like, that building phase, for the most part, is your own information about where things are on the map and on the board and in people's hands and which ovoid is real. And so Christina, playing this game for the first time, is 3/4 of the way through the game going, I still don't know what to do.
Right.
I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing right now. And so everyone's game experience with Chaosmos is so different, because I started the game with the dark ovoid. And then I quickly found the cipher. The dark ovoid is real. And then it's a moment, right? It's I've got to last 30 more turns.
Right.
What do now? I have no idea what to do. So I built a huge base. I tried to defend it. Nealon tried to attack it unsuccessfully, as he usually is unsuccessful when he tries to attack me. And then as soon as he tried to attack it again, I
moved it.
I stole out the card that he thought he was going to get in there.
What I loved about this was critically you put the information about which ovoid was real in that base. So it was just anyone's ability to like determine the game state was eventually locked behind this unassailable wall, which was pretty cool. As a move, I thought that was really clever.
There's so many mechanisms in Chaosmos that I don't know where else they exist.
Right.
It is not a perfect game. It is a love it or hate it type affair, to be honest. But you have these envelopes with the planets and you can establish a base and any weapon in that base fights against them. So I found all these weapons and I just stuffed them in the base, and Nealon and Christina just try-harded to try to take over my base, and they couldn't do it. And it was ultimately their downfall.
Yeah, I'll admit I felt like I was floundering for a lot of the beginning of the game, but there was a point towards the end where I came to appreciate a lot of things about the game in general. Like, I think the thing that you described about how most of the first 2/3 of the game is sort of acquiring the ability and the means to end the game in your favor, I think is very, very cool. The other thing I like is that there are the means to counter almost everything in the game somewhere on the board. So knowing where things are, which is the first half of the game, exploring, finding things, and then getting the means to obtain them in order to be able to win the game or counter like a strong attack, in the case of Kellen's game, felt like what the game was, can I set myself up so that when the time comes, I have the means in order to snatch the victory?
There are a couple of things I really like about this game. The unique nature of it being a reverse hot potato game. You know, hot potato, you don't want to have the potato at the end. In this game, the goal is to have the potato at the end, or the ovoid at the end. And I also like the cosmic encounter craziness of the alien powers, and you really feel like you have like a unique class, and there's a lot of these crazy events and crazy things that don't feel like just randomness injected. It feels like that cosmic encounter, like cool crazy, if that makes any sense. The thing that I didn't really like, and you sort of have both touched upon this, is, you know, Kellen said, I know the information now, what do I do? And he's answered that question. And Nealon has said, I felt like I was floundering. And they both have addressed that. And so this is not a black and white criticism, but for me, it felt like there was a lot of the game that you sort of had some bit of information, or you sort of had a goal or something. And I just felt like there were a number of turns for me where I was basically treading water. Like, for example, you can bank unused action. It's an action point game, and you have 3 actions per turn. There were a lot of times where I was banking actions because I just felt like, okay, I've sort of done what I want to do, or even worse, I don't really have to do anything this turn at all. You know, I don't really feel like there's much I can do. And this could have been a function of my alien race. My alien was one that could zoom along the board, and so I was zooming around learning a lot of information. Although I will say I didn't have some of the crucial information, but there were some times where I just felt like if there had been some good benefit for passing, I would have. But, you know, it's not like I was looking to pass, but I just felt like...
It strikes me similar to Cosmic Encounter, obviously the game that we're comparing it to, where you draw a hand of poor cards.
Right.
And then you get mad at the game and say, like, what do I do now?
Right.
There's nothing I can do. When advanced Cosmic Encounter players will tell you, like, that has to inform your strategy.
Right.
So if you don't have the information,
right,
and you don't have the hand of cards, then what situation should you now be trying to set yourself up for? So, for example, you know, we were in an alliance, which is a new thing in the expansion, but you could have, let's say, wanted to betray me, right? You knew I had all the information. And so then you knew my attack strategy was to use, like, the spore cards, because you'd seen it come out. So you could have expedited the search to get the counter for the spore thing. But it isn't this thing where there's sort of 3 paths to victory and you're always pursuing one of them. It can be very confusing to figure out, like, what would be good to do.
Right.
And I think that experience with the game would bring that. But it is a gamey sort of system, you know, and Cosmic Encounter is a little bit cleaner. I think the system gets out of your way quicker than in Chaosmos. And like I said earlier, like a love it or hate it type experience, but certainly an experience.
Yeah. I just wonder if I would have liked it more. Your criticism is valid. I will agree that I almost certainly wasn't playing the game as well as I maybe should have been, but I wonder if I would have liked it more. And I did like it. To be clear, I did like the experience because it's so unique. But I wonder if it had been a few turns shorter. And that's another good thing because the game is variable in terms of its length.
Yeah.
If you want a shorter game. I wonder if that would have made me like it more. But again, maybe I'm not liking it for the wrong reasons.
I think that was a pretty big criticism on mine as well, is that felt like, what is the half an hour, 45-minute shorter version? And a lot of that is confounded by a first play, to be fair, which I think I would enjoy it substantially more the second time around.
Yeah, so that is Chaosmos. If that sounds interesting, I definitely encourage seeking out or trying it because it does feel unlike anything else on the market, which is something that I am always looking for.
And there may be like a potential late pledge.
Yeah, I'm sure there is.
Yeah. So another couple games that we played at Strategicon, at least a couple of us played these games, was a Wolfgang Warsch doubleheader. I can anticipate that my...
WW.
I can anticipate...
But not the good one.
What's the good one? World War?
Woodrow Wilson.
Oh, well, no, Woodrow Wilson was like a racist.
Yeah.
I was thinking of George W. Bush, but that isn't a WW,
No.
and he's not a good one. Windwalker.
There we go.
Oh, that's a Zelda thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
No. Oh, Wind Waker.
Oh, wait.
Windwalker is a Mr. Cthulhu faction.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But Wind Waker,
Waker is a
I
Zelda
prefer Wind Waker, so take it back. Strike that. Reverse it.
Even when I mess up, I do good things. So my inability to explain one of these games well, I can already tell, is going to be sort of a clue into why we liked one more than the other. So this will make sense in a second. So the first game we played was on a scale from 1 to T-Rex. So we all played this game. The idea is that there are 3 different actions that you can be doing. So for example, one of them could be tell your mom how your day is doing. It's not charades because you can actually talk. You can actually say whatever you want.
Hi, Mom. I went to lunch today with a friend.
Okay, so remember that.
Good.
So that's like Kellen mimicking that action at, say, like a 2, like he's drawn a 2 card. Because the other thing that you're doing is you're getting a card that has both a color that corresponds to one of the 3 actions and a number. The number indicates the intensity at which you do those actions. So if Kellen had drawn, you put yourself in this hole. So if Kellen had drawn a blue, which is tell your mom how your day is doing, 9 card, he would be doing this.
Oh my God. Mom, Mark told me that I was the most attractive person he'd ever met or known.
Okay.
And that includes his parents.
That was a Kellen drawing a blue 6 card.
What? No, I'm not.
That's not.
I'm not.
That's
animated is hard for me. Can we do the animated move your arms around?
It's going to work well on
great
an
for
audio
podcast.
podcast. Yeah.
So, but Kellen is alluding to something because these are not always verbal. One of them could be act like one of those noodly, what do you call those?
Like blow up men.
Yeah, those blow up men that you see in front of car dealerships. So that was one we had where you have to imitate one of those. So at an intensity of 1, you could be swaying back and forth very leisurely, but at 10, your limbs are flying all over the place. So this is a simultaneous action game where everybody's drawing a card, seeing what their color and their number is, and doing that action at the same time. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to match somebody at the table, not based on their action, because that's quite obvious, but based on their intensity. So if Kellen is telling his mom what his day is like at a frenetic pace and screaming and shouting,
like what was clearly a 9
right
previously,
and Nealon is flailing all over the place. Yeah, exactly. For those watching at home, you can see that. And they think they're both doing that at a similar intensity. One of them presents their card to the other, and if that player agrees, they flip their cards, and if they match intensities, they get 2 victory points. If they're 1 intensity away, they get 1 victory point, and if they're off, they get negative points. So you keep doing that until either the victory point pile or the negative point pile has been used up, and that's basically the game. It's a game that takes 15 minutes to play. Very simple, very crazy as it sounds, and I think we all enjoyed it. I think 2 of us enjoyed it.
Yeah, despite my excellent wavy arm man impression just then, this is not a kneeling game.
Okay.
I don't have the level of comfort to be that egregiously silly at the appropriate intensity, I guess.
So we had one new player playing with us, Chris, who's a listener who's on the Discord, who's great, but not somebody we normally play games with. And we were also doing it in a room where people are having a conversation in the corner.
Yeah.
Which is a little awkward. If those had been eliminated...
I still think so. I think it's like it's a physicality thing.
Sure.
I'm not a very sort of physical, gregarious sort of person by nature.
Totally fair.
It was very funny because that specific example happened where 3 players were flailing their arms like a used car blow up inflatable thing. And I think Neelan was supposed to be
I was
like
supposed to be at a 7.
Yeah, and there was some Chris was doing like the most amazing 10.
Right.
And if Chris was a 10, Neelan was a 2.
Yeah, right.
like a solid 2.
I believe the blue tank was very upset at Neelan's level of...
It wasn't even close. And so like right next to each other it would make a great video as just the 2 of them doing this for 20 seconds.
Right.
But those moments are funny, I will admit.
Yeah.
Like how is that a 7?
Yeah,
is
right.
like that's what you want from this.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it strikes me as very similar to Wavelength, which is about words, but the game is sort of is sussing out like on a scale of this to that. Like what intensity is that? Is that a 3? Is that a 7? It does make the 1s and the 10s easier to suss out. Like what's the difference between a 4 and a 6 is harder to see than, oh, okay,
That's clearly
he's doing
a 1.
like it's like walk like a crab at a 1 or a 10.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to see who's on the floor walking like a crab.
Sure. Yeah.
But I think I similarly, Neelan, like the physicality stuff, I have more apprehension about. It's sort of like I took an improv class for work, believe it or not, and like the stuff where it's like, move your arms in a shape like you're a machine robot. Mm-hmm. I had a much harder time with than some of the like verbal like jokes.
Yeah.
It's just like this like, no, like I don't want to make my body do that.
Right,
I feel stupid. But it was pretty funny.
Yeah.
I thought it was great.
I think you will know by that description if it's a game for you or not.
Totally.
One, I think, big advantage to this game is it's just really simple to teach. Nobody had learned how to play. We learned how to play on the fly. And from opening the box to finishing the first game was probably 20 minutes. It was really, really quick. And so I think if it's a game that you like, that is a big selling point. So that was on a scale of 1 to T-Rex. The other one was Subtext, another Wolfgang Warsch game. So this one is a game where there's a person who leads every round of the game, and they will see a secret word. And then they will shuffle up a number of cards with that card with other secret words. So they know one of the secret words, they don't know what the other secret words are. Those cards are distributed to the rest of the players, and then everybody, including the clue giver, the leader of that round, will draw their word. But they want to draw it in a sort of way where the person who matches them, so again, the leader knows the secret word, and he knows that one of the other players also knows the secret word. He's their partner, for example.
Yeah, so he looks at the first card on a stack of 6 cards, then shuffles all the cards together and deals them to the other 6 players.
Right.
So someone will get his card.
So if I knew the secret word was C, like SEA, okay, I would have that card with another bunch of other cards saying other things. I wouldn't know what those cards said, and then I would distribute them to the players, knowing that one person has the word C in their hand. And so you're drawing it in such a way that you and your partner will connect. They'll know that they have the secret word, and you know that they have your matching word.
They'll read the subtext of the image.
There you go. And then everybody guesses. So then the leader's drawing is put on one side of the table. All the other drawings are put on the other side of the table. And everybody tries to guess which of the drawings drawn by the other players matches the leader's drawing. Which to match. And the way that things are scored is that...
So I think scoring is honestly too complicated to explain beyond saying that it's sort of like Dixit, where you want to distract other people. So you want them... If you draw things too literally, they're going to know it doesn't match the leader of that round. So everyone is trying to draw drawings that are sort of kind of similar, that someone else would make the connection, but most people wouldn't.
Right. Yeah. And your argument that I shouldn't explain the scoring is one of my gripes of the game, is that it just is not as intuitive. I mean, we got it towards the end of it, but it felt like... And also, I would say that there isn't as much scoring as you sort of would like. It felt like an all or nothing situation where either everybody knew what the drawings were or nobody did, and it just didn't feel like there was enough game there. Even though it is a gamery drawing game, it felt like it was too black and white, too all score, no score.
Yeah, it was like most of the rounds seemed to end where the word would be paradise, the word that the 2 players were trying to match, and someone drew a palm tree and the other one drew like a desert island.
Right.
And everyone at the table is just like sort of smirking because we all know the round's going to end and no one scores because everyone knows that those are the 2 cards that match.
Right.
Because the other drawings is like a firefighter, a moon, and like an earthworm. So it's just like, Okay. So too many of the rounds ended that way. And it seriously, I was shocked at how much I dislike this.
Sure.
We weren't even done with the first round, and I was basically telling Mark that he had made a huge mistake in purchasing it.
And then he crushed my game.
Yeah, that did happen. It was funny watching this one from the sidelines because I didn't play because everyone seemed eager to sub me in instead of them.
Right.
Yeah, Neelan.
You can
here.
take my spot.
Yeah.
So just a very puzzling one, and one that sort of like, it's Dixit, but if you had to draw, and people aren't very good at drawing.
It feels like a game that's less than some of its parts. Like, I think if you told me what the game was, if you gave me the pitch for the game, it sounds
you might
great.
be intrigued.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I was intrigued. I was when I saw it at the math trade, I was
I
like,
saw your eyes light up.
They lit up because I wanted to crush that box.
Right, that's true. That's true. So yeah, that is Subtext, also from Wolfgang Warsch. Neelan, what have you been playing?
We've all been playing.
Yes.
Imperial.
We just finished it.
Yeah. So
You can see the box right behind me.
Not Empyreal.
Right. Not Matt Gertz's Imperial. This is Empyreal.
Yes.
Which is spelled Empyreal.
Anime Train.
Yeah. Spells of Steam is the subtitle. It is, yeah.
Spells
not-
of Steam?
Spells of Steam.
And you may think Anime Trains translates to 1889.
Spells and...
Are you
Steam.
killing my joke right now? Did you hear
was it
my
fine?
joke?
No.
It's an 1889 joke.
Oh, was it? Go
You
ahead.
may think...
Go ahead.
Well, if I have to
Good
explain it to you,
comedian
it's not...
can just say the
Just
joke
do it?
again. Yeah.
Am I a good comedian?
Well, remains to be seen. Go ahead.
I already told my
See,
mom
this
that
is
you
not-
think I'm the most attractive person that you've met or known. You may think that Anime Trains is synonymous with 1889, the Japanese 18XX game, but you'd be wrong.
Are you going to say the joke? That was terrible.
Don't be rude. I pre-planned that.
I was trying to help Neelan because he missed...
Yeah.
Empyreal. Empyreal.
Imperial spells and Steam.
Oh, there's a subtitle.
Yeah.
We could make a second one up. Anime
There's
Train.
a subtitle,
Yes.
but there's no subtext.
Okay.
I preferred
Go ahead.
Did you plan that one?
No, I'm always on the fly.
Yeah, that's written down. I see it on your piece of paper. Yeah.
Imperial Spells and Steam is a game about making trains. So
It's a board game.
It's a board game.
It starts as a board game.
So the initial setup has a map with a bunch of different colored, 6 different colors of tiles. Each tile has a corresponding good on it. There are cities that each of these goods can be delivered to. So 6 cities on the board, and each of them corresponds to one of these types of goods, which is where that good can be delivered to. Each city also has 4 contracts that are sort of nestled on the city, and those contracts might be deliver 2 goods, or deliver 3 goods, deliver 4 goods. So mostly what you're doing is you have this action board where your little conductor moves along that gives you actions that you can spend crystals to activate, depending on how many you want to activate. And the majority of these are about placing trains on the board. So you're growing out your train network in order to reach different hexes that had different goods. When you have enough goods to fulfill one of those contracts, and if you're adjacent to that city as well, you can do a deliver action when your conductor gets to the end of your action row. And all of those goods go to that city, you get points, you fulfill the contract, and you've removed goods from the board. So it's a game about sort of branching out your train network to reach goods, which you'll then deliver to the cities before other players can. There's a bunch of other fun stuff in here in that you sort of grow your action board by sort of adding train cars, which give you cool new abilities. Every player has a unique special abilities. There are some characters that can unlock new passive abilities and new active abilities, which is going to sort of tailor the way that your little action board is set up in an optimal way, basically. So we all just played this Imperial. Do we have any thoughts?
I guess for me, I was thinking this was going to be sort of like an 18xx game with special powers was the way I was going into it. I'll say that I did enjoy the game. It is not, it's not that. I think if you are looking for a train game corollary, it would be Steam, because Steam is a pick up and deliver game, and so there's that part of it. It's not as mean as Steam, which I didn't like. I liked the meanness of Steam. So that's just a sort of an aside for anybody looking for a train-esque game. I don't think you're going to scratch that itch so much here. But yeah, I liked it. I found the route building and the wanting to deliver goods before your opponents did to be fun. There's an aspect where you and your opponent can cohabitate the same space with a good on it, but if you can deliver it first, you basically just snatch it out from under them, and they are left to figure some other plan. That was a really nice, mean twist that I liked in it. The powers are also very interesting. Yeah, it just didn't feel, except for the route building, which is a trainy thing, it didn't feel like trainy in that way, but I did like it.
So this was a review copy. This is one of the most lavishly produced board games I've ever seen. Crazy resources, an amazingly beautiful box, cool compartments for each train, individual molds for the trains of each type. It's very, very visually distinct. I liked the game more than I thought I would after we got through the rules explanation. It has an element of you have a conductor and he's moving along your train. And so there's sort of the puzzle on your board and then the puzzle on the board that are two different things. And you are acquiring new cars for your train that give you unique abilities, and you're slotting them underneath other train cars that you have. And then when the conductor gets to that spot, you can choose to activate multiple things. So you're trying to create your own combos, which is always fun. I love any type of combo building, and this game does have that, where it's like, okay, I'm going to need to deliver desert tiles pretty soon, so I'm going to buy these 2 desert train cars, and I'm going to slot them together, and that's going to be more efficient. The game has this ability to, like, you can almost do anything you want, provided you can pay for it with mana crystals. So you can actually just skip over places on the board if you want to. You could skip 7 spaces if you could and just continue your network somewhere else. And the rulebook even says, because it's magic,
right,
you can do this. And so that makes it a little less punishing, which I don't know how I feel. But one of the things that we all said, and that I think is a huge credit to the game Empyreal, is we got through a 3-player game of it, and we're kind of slow players, honestly. We got through a 3-player game of it in 1 hour 20, and it felt longer than that.
Yeah.
It felt like it had been 2 hours solid, and that we had played a 2-hour game. You know, and there's sort of that feeling of like, am I playing a light filler game, or am I playing a board game?
Yeah.
And playing Empyreal felt like we were playing a real board game.
Right.
And we were done with it in 1 hour 20, which I think is a testament to sort of the smoothness that still allows for combos. There is a lot of looking up the iconography and figuring out what each train card does, but there's a lot of cool powers and systems laid on top of systems that you have to evaluate and think about. And yeah.
There's 2 key things that I thought that really sold this game for me. It was the ability to build a tailor-made board that was catering to your playstyle. Like, my character's special ability was being able to use a column of actions for free, basically. So I could just like stack expensive abilities in a way that felt very satisfying to do. It also has a kind of almost a Great Western Trail quality loop to it, in that it's sort of like, you want to be able to deliver effectively by the time you get to the end of your row. So it's, how can you set that up so that you can deliver and then restart, and set that up again, deliver and restart, in a way that I just find that simple loop of, by the time you get to the end of here, you must have what you need to deliver, quite pleasant.
It's a game where you can't pay attention to everything that your opponents are building on their rail car, but you can look over and see how close is that conductor to the end of the train, which is when you get to deliver. And then if you share a space, you know, and then you see, oh, he might be able to connect to that city and then deliver that good before me, I better rush my conductor along and pay extra. So I did like that interplay where, in a casual way, you could look up, sort of suss out where someone was headed. And, you know, Mark and I sort of near the end of the game got into who can end the game faster than one another, and I found that counterplay with each other really fun.
And I'm always a fan of a game where tempo is a factor. I like that. For as loose as it is in terms of you can do whatever you want, it's not loose because you do have to pay these mana crystals that are, you know, finite and very constricting. But if you set things up right, you can have a little bit of leeway to change your plans or do different things. But tempo is still a big thing, and I did like that. I like games where the idea of sacrificing a good or sacrificing a resource in like search of tempo advantage is a factor, and that's definitely part of this game.
There is a host of character upgrades and one-time use powers, and a lot of systems that layer onto each other in a way that would lend itself to replayability.
Definitely.
It also plays up to 6 players, but I'm not so sold on that. I think 4 or 5 in a pinch if you had to. But turns were quick, with the exception of sort of which train car should I choose? Which special power should I get? Which I think over repeated plays, you would understand the iconography, because it is pretty and a simple system once you're kind of in it.
Yeah, I agree with you that it was a game that we played in 1 hour and 20 minutes that felt like a longer game, felt like a meatier game, felt like a more like full experience in that short time frame, sort of would lend you to believe. But along with that quickness that we liked in the actual gameplay, the fact that it was done in a relatively short period of time, this sort of dovetails nicely into our discussion, because the one negative that we had about this game would be also time related, and that is when it comes to the setup time for this game. The setup time for Empyreal is quite lengthy. It has packing instructions, for example. So the box is massive, and it's got all these game trays, and it's got all these components and stuff. And so you need an instruction sort of like guide to put everything back in. And so it shouldn't surprise anybody that taking it out of the box takes some time. There's setting up the board and setting up the pieces and stuff like that. It takes quite a while. I know you said when you first popped it open and first were packing away, it took quite a bit of time.
Yeah, it was over an hour. And I saw a thread on Twitter where Tom Vassell was excited about the fact that In the Hall of the Mountain King came with like a how to package the game up instruction manual.
Right.
And I just posted a picture of the Empyreal one in our Discord, and I just said, like, I can't this is like a game,
right,
to set up the box for the game. And it's just like, it's almost a straight downgrade to like actual bags. Like, just put bags in it.
Right.
It looks nice. It looks beautiful.
It does
They're
look
so
beautiful.
cool.
Yeah.
And it's fun to hand someone their little tray with their trains in it.
Yeah.
But, I put Empyreal in my bag and then took it to game night, and I had it all, right side up in my bag, but I was walking with it, and then all the trains got loose.
Right.
And it's just like, I lost it. I almost lost it. And so it is sort of that one thing that I would go, can I recommend this unequivocally?
Right. Right. And if you want to see a picture of that Empyreal train debacle, join our Discord at boardgamebarrage.com/Discord. I know you posted a picture of it at some point, or you posted another picture of it. So now that we've transitioned seamlessly into our feature topic, Neelan, let me know a game that you love, but there's just one thing wrong with it.
So somewhat related, I think, to Empyreal is my love of Kemet. I feel is a game that has one element to the component setup of this, which are these power tiles you get. So in Kemet, you have one of 3 different colors in the base game, and there is a array of 16 tiles as arranged in a fairly precise 4x4 grid, which is to say that each row has 4 specific tiles in it. If you have these all just bagged, as I tend to do, you're fishing through those tiles, trying to get them into the perfect order and setup, and putting them on one end of the table. They're essentially stuck there in a way that people have to constantly reference. So people are getting up from their end of the table, moving over to the tiles, trying to see what's available, seeing what they can get, and coming back to their seat. Worse than that, there's just language-independent iconography on these tiles. So you're doing that while referencing this sheet. It's just kind of a mess.
Yeah.
It's the one thing in Kemet that sort of is just, should be better, basically. And to that vein, I ended up just buying, just this weekend, an insert for this, which keeps the tiles in these nice sort of grids. So you can just pick up the tray, pass it to someone else, which just makes it that much easier. And it just felt like the perfect quality of life improvement to get Kemet going from a game that could be so close to being just everything is fantastic in Kemet except for this one thing. That feels to me like the most archetypical example of a game that is just, God, if they just done this one thing, it would have been fantastic.
The usability, and I think you can look on Board Game Geek, right, and see homegrown solutions for usability problems like that, and you can kind of get a sense. I know with Kemet, there's people who use the Pokemon trading card sleeve binders with the 3x3 grid, and they just put all the power tiles in that and then pass around the binder to people.
Wait, hold on. Why is that a Pokemon 3x3 binder?
Well, it could be
That's
Magic the
sports
Gathering.
cards.
It's not sports cards.
Or
Don't
Magic
bring
the
don't
Gathering.
bring up sports poll.
Oh,
Our audience doesn't
why
care.
would you call that a
Okay.
Pokemon
Let's
binder?
do an informal poll. Who cares more about sports
I'm
or
not talking
Pokemon?
about cares. I'm talking about what's right and what's wrong.
Okay, they're Pokemon binders. Anyway, and similarly in a game like Food Chain Magnate, there's a lot of usability upgrades or sort of accordions that store the cards or dry erase boards for the milestones that it's hiding a usability imperfection of the game.
Right.
And I find tableaus of cards even sometimes pretty challenging. I know in even Pax Pamir 2nd Edition, a lot of the game takes place in reading and sussing out that tableau, and that tableau is facing one direction, and each card has an order in that tableau, and you basically got to make sure everyone is sitting in sort of the perfect way to at any time read all of the cards in that array. And there's a little bit of, could you hand me that card, Neelan? I can't read that, or you have to sit in a specific way. And not that's not a criticism of Pax Pamir. That's just in a tableau game, Kemet takes it to the next level.
Right, exactly.
There's that many more in Kemet.
Callan, do you have a game?
Did I have a game?
Yeah, did you have a game?
I basically taught you what board games were.
That's true. That's true.
You didn't
I owe
beforehand.
you
Thank
an
you.
eternal debt of gratitude.
You were
for
too
that.
busy playing sports ball.
Yes.
Actually, I really dislike when people when they make those jokes. Well, actually, I made.
I knew you just did.
Yeah.
So
No, but
sort
it's
of
like-
self-hating.
but
thing.
It's like, how could people like watching grown men toss a ball at each other? I'm just like,
Right.
shut the up.
Or the people that take pride in saying what else they're doing on Super Bowl day.
Yeah,
and stuff
right.
like that.
Yeah, it's absurd.
Yeah.
We're playing with little toys.
right.
And they're at least it's a physical thing where they're improving their body.
Everybody has
Socrates.
hobbies
Is it
that-
Socrates?
It is Socrates. What are you talking about?
The one that said master your own body or whatever? I think it's Plato.
Nealon.
I'm not. Yeah. Mastering your physical body is not a specialty subject.
It's sort of like it's it's about what a shame it is that man can't even conquer his own body. It's in essence of basically take care of yourself.
Right.
That would be a inspirational quote. Just pretend like it had been said.
I feel inspired.
Or maybe future Mark, you could try to do my voice and dub it over.
Yeah. Okay. You got it.
Easy.
Done.
And you could remove the sports ball disparaging comments I
Right.
made. Great. But do I have a game?
But do you have a game? Do you have a game that you love, but there's just one little thing that's not quite there?
Yeah, I wanted to take the opportunity to talk about Root again, and also in conjunction with that, Cthulhu Wars. Root has a faction called the Vagabond in it, and I won't go as far as say it is imbalanced, because I think that would be doing a disservice to a game that has been playtested thousands of times. But the Vagabond faction in Root is a asymmetric factions in the wilderness of cute little animals all fighting each other. And the way each faction plays is significantly different. There is one faction called the Vagabond who you don't score points by attacking. And so the Vagabond is sort of running around the board, maintaining the board and hitting everyone and being a nuisance, sort of like a raccoon digging around in your trash and you just want him to go away, right? But you don't score points for stopping the raccoon. You don't score points for stopping the Vagabond. And so the game sort of becomes this, someone better hit the Vagabond or the Vagabond's going to win. And that devolves for me in a way that I don't really like playing with the Vagabond. And so one of the things that's great about Root is there's actually been now 2 expansions, the Lizards and the Riverfolk. And then in the new expansion, you have the Moles and the something else that I have not played. Anyway, in the 2 expansions for Root, which I have still not gotten to the table yet, they have 4 new factions. And so you can sub out the Vagabond. And I think there are many people who choose to play that way. It's similar to Cthulhu Wars, which has one famous faction, the Chocho, who win the game by turtling. And so if someone doesn't attack them, they win. There's also the Yellow Sign faction, which kind of sort of wins the game if people leave them alone. But I think Cthulhu Wars tries to do a smart job of incentivizing you to attack them, but it's not always the case. And so I don't love it when a game forces you to metagame itself. And I know in some ways Root is all about that, but it's one little nagging thing about Root for me.
Yeah, I get that. The fact that you are sort of forced to, at your own detriment, bash the Vagabond, but you're not really gaining anything. So if you take it upon yourself to be the person who puts the Vagabond in check, you're putting yourself in a worse position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in some sense, that's like Archipelago and contributing to a crisis. But in Root, the scores just feel so tight. And so basically the person who hits the Vagabond should be the player in first place. But how often is the person in first place hit the Vagabond and then third place sneaks in the win, because they were guilted into attacking the Vagabond. So that's just a little niggling problem. Is that a word?
Yeah, niggling is definitely a word.
That's on my head, scratching,
Yeah, like an itch.
Yeah.
It's curious in the case of both games, actually, Root and Cthulhu Wars, that it's endemic to the base game, but subsequently fixed with expansions. Because in the case of Cthulhu Wars, if you're playing a 4-player game, you're forced to play with the yellow sign. Whereas if you have access to more factions, you can solve the problem, but it seems unfortunate that the base game doesn't.
Yeah, and even calling it a problem is it's just, I still will play Cthulhu Wars with the yellow sign. I still will play Root with the Vagabond, but maybe I don't want to do it if I'm the one choosing factions, and I set them out and say, choose what's interesting to you. I won't stop someone, but I will with the Chocho, and I put that in the trash.
You mentioned earlier, Kellen, when you were talking about Hall of Mountain King and Empyreal, that you would maybe even prefer the bagged approach to these game trays and the fact that people who've been saying that you should put the components into sports card holders. I tried this for a game, for Gloomhaven specifically, because it's known to be quite a beast to set up and tear down. And so there are a lot of, if you go to BGG forums, a lot of recommended, they even tell you like which binders and stuff to buy and what sleeves to get and everything in order to make the teardown and the setup easier. And so I bought everything before my first game and even sort of practiced putting it in the box and setting it up. Practiced.
I get literally practice.
I get that from playing sports, the importance of practice. Anyhow, so I did this, and yet, even with as many solves, community-based solves as possible and recommendations, the setup and the teardown of Gloomhaven became, to me, such a burden that I ended up trading the game away, even though it's a game that I acknowledge is a really good game, and I can definitely see how it could be a lot of people's best game of all time, for sure. But just the setup of the teardown was so arduous, even with as many shortcuts as possible involved. It just seemed like still too much, and it became something in my head where when people brought up the idea of playing Gloomhaven, I was excited, and then I remembered the setup, and I was like, I just don't want to play this.
It's funny, I've heard people say online that they just leave Gloomhaven like set up on a table.
Sure.
And
if you have the luxury, like, if you didn't live in a gymnasium,
right,
you could leave.
I got
Gloomhaven.
Plenty of space. It's just that
there's no tables.
Basketballs are bouncing around, and I always worry about the things being disarranged. But so yeah, for me, that was just the point that moved Gloomhaven from a game that I love to.
I think, even as someone that loves Gloomhaven and it's close to being my favorite game, really, it's right up there. I think this is absolutely on point for this topic. It is the single thing that is incredibly frustrating about that game. As someone that plays it regularly, I've resolved to a lot of these sort of third-party upgrades. Basically, I have an insert that does it. I have a bunch of apps that take care of some of the management. So all these just little fiddly aspects that sort of otherwise drag down an excellent game. It's hard to recommend the game without those things. If you were to play the game without an insert and be fishing through for specific tiles and fishing through all the card setups you need to be and arranging all the monsters at the start of the game, I would have a hard time recommending that without saying, hey, just do a few quality of life improvements, pay for some things if you need to, get the app, etc. And those are the things that elevate it to being an incredible game for me.
Right.
A small example of this that I have is when I go to recommend a word party game, I'd love to recommend Decrypto. Decrypto is a fantastic word-based party game where you're trying to intercept clues. And I've never had a bad game of Decrypto once you're playing Decrypto. Yeah. But what I have had is a bad time teaching people how to play Decrypto. I have rage quitted a teach in progress of Decrypto because I said at the beginning, please don't ask me questions until I'm done with the rules explanation, and yet multiple questions happen. So Decrypto is, in my mind, maybe not as good as Codenames, but it's in the same in the same echelon as Codenames. But Codenames I can teach, and Codenames anyone could perhaps learn. But I think we a lot of times overestimate what people could handle. I bought my sister Azul for Christmas, thinking, that'd be great, but she doesn't know how to play it. And she's like, now you got to come over and teach me how to play it. I didn't want to come over and teach her how to play Azul. I just wanted to give her a pretty board game and let her go away. So Decrypto, for me, that one nagging little thing, the rules are just hard to get through. It just, until you're playing the game, it doesn't coalesce.
Yeah.
And therefore, I end up recommending something like Codenames more often.
It's funny that you mentioned Azul, because Azul is on my list of games that are not quite perfect to have one nagging thing because of the fiddliness of the scoring in Azul. It's not a teaching thing. It's not a rules explanation issue. It's that the way that you score in Azul is a little bit complicated. I wouldn't say for any gamer with any experience it is, but it's not a game that you can teach intuitively to somebody who is not familiar with games, I think, in general.
I wonder if that's why my sister keeps calling. I don't know what it is about Azul that's too much for her.
Right.
Because I haven't gone over there yet.
Well, you should see your sister.
And you don't take her calls.
I screen them.
Because you're concerned that Azul is the issue?
No. Azul's the issue.
Oh, okay.
She's told me it's an issue.
I see.
She's following up regularly to say, when can we play Azul?
Yeah, and the thing is, Azul is otherwise really intuitive and really sort of simple and checks all those marks for a game that should be really simple to break out and teach and play. It's like pick up tiles of a color and put them on your board, and everything feels like easy and intuitive and clicks together. But it's just the scoring, just the rows and columns and all that stuff is just a little step off of what I feel is like perfect for what Azul sort of should be.
And that actually reminds me of another light card game that we just played, Point Salad. And Point Salad is one that's so smooth in the gameplay that I was halfway through the game excited and said, wow, I'm buying this today. I started looking for it on Amazon. And then we got to the scoring.
Yeah.
And I was like, it ground to a halt.
Yeah.
And it is a light game, and the scoring is not that complicated, but it's still a bunch of multiplication and adding columns up in a way that was annoying. It made the game smoother by offloading some of that to the scoring.
Sure.
It tricked you a little bit.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, look at the fun we're having. And then you get to the end and it's like, oh.
Yeah, look how fast the turns are. Boom, boom,
Yeah,
boom,
exactly.
boom, boom, and then
Now do all the math that
Yeah.
you should have been doing the whole game.
Right.
One more game that I sort of had on my list is something that I thought it would be fun to talk about was I played my first game of Concordia.
Concordia is perfect.
Is it?
How could you have any issues with it?
Well, here's the thing: is I think it's so close to being perfect because I think the things that you can't deny about Concordia is it's smooth and it's quite elegant, to use a bad word, in a way.
Why is elegant a bad word?
Well, I think it's an
a beautiful
overused
word.
word. It's an overused word in the context of board games, I think.
Do you think elegant is a beautiful word? I think so. Cause
Yeah. Elegant feel like it describes itself quite well. Elegant.
Yeah.
I've done so many personal anecdotes that I
Okay.
shan't. But at a future time,
Shan, go ahead.
we shall return to elegant.
I will say that awkward, I think, is a perfect word.
Yeah.
Because awkward is a very awkward looking word and sounding word.
People used to use the word elegant to like rile me up
Oh, really?
in high school.
All right.
Back in the days of Hotmail and too many secrets.
But yeah, I think Concordia is a smooth game that I think is so simple to explain. I just love the way it plays.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't bring myself to be excited about it. And it's not entirely the theme because it is just another trading in the Mediterranean game, but everything about what you're doing just feels very dry.
Yeah.
I feel like this is one re-theme away from being a game I would love. Like, if you gave me the space version of Concordia,
Sure.
I think I would be all over it. But yeah, that just felt like one small little quirk that
Yeah.
was enough to make me, I don't know if I would be chomping at the bit to play it again.
That makes sense.
Or if you were recommending it to someone, it's like, what would you say to get them excited? It's
Yeah.
like it is every Euro game refined.
Right.
Yeah. So that does it for our talk about games that we love and we almost could recommend unreservedly, but there's just one little thing that throws them off. Thank you all for listening. As always, you can find us at boardgamebarrage.com. You can find our Discord where we're chatting about games that we like or love or hate at boardgamebarrage.com/Discord. If you want a more long form discussion, you can find it at boardgamebarrage.com/guild, where we talk at BGG about things in more depth, I'd say. Certainly not as rapid fire. So pick your poison there. That's probably not a good thing to say, but it's fine. You can find us at Twitter and Facebook and any sort of form of social media that you want to find us. We are there waiting for you. Thank you, as always, to Heart Society for our intro and outro song, What's on Your Mind, Kid? You can find it on their album, Wake the Queens. And that is going to do it for the show. We will see you guys next week.
Bye-bye.
So long. Just give me a little pizzazz, Mark. Just give me a little pizzazz.
I'm giving you pizzazz.
You think you want to play that back?
Yeah, let's play it back. No.
That has pizzazz?
Okay, I'll
Let the record.
We'll re-record it. We'll re-record it. All right, we're doing it again?
Yep.
You ready?
Just a sec. Which way do I want this, Does my hair look...
Oh my God.
What do you mean?
All right,
you
go
don't,
ahead.
Do you know what
Mise
it's
en
like
scène yourself. Do
to
it.
have this beautiful hair?
No.
All the work that
Exactly.
goes into it.
All right.
Yeah, conditioning,
Product. You have
stay
product
and
there?
curl.
What's your product level?
So, what is that called? L'Oreal? No.
Yeah.
L'Oreal.
No. What's the kind? So, I have this conditioner and shampoo
Okay.
that Garnier Fructis.
Oh,
That's what it is.
high quality.
And one day, the Blue Tank told me, you know that this product is for women.
Right.
And I said, no, I just like it when my hair smells like apples.
That's
babe.
fair.
Yeah.
And then the next time I needed that shampoo and conditioner, I was in the supermarket and I ran into my boss in the shampoo aisle.
Okay.
And I put back the Apple conditioner.
Really?
Back on the... Because I was like, I don't want her to know that this Garnier Fructis wasn't for me.
Okay.
You know, I could have been like, this is for my girlfriend.
Yeah.
So I ended up with a like Dove plus men. So it has the word men on it.
You're right, which is important.
And
To be
so
clear. Yeah.
that's how I know
Yeah.
that it's a product for me.
I wonder if, because I've never thought that Garnier Fructis thing
I
was
didn't
the-
either.
well,
I just love the
I
smell.
wouldn't care. Who cares?
Well, I care deeply.
You're not comfortable with your masculinity, clearly. Right?
If you could grow this hair,
I could grow crazy hair.
It's true. I've seen it.
Yeah, we have pictures of me. crazy.
where have you seen it?
Well,
What the hell are
have
you
you,
talking
what?
about?
remember the first photos from the early recordings? Mark's hair is like...
Oh,
That's right.
yeah,
Yeah,
when you
see?
look like Jesus.
That's right. I was trying to preach to you. I'm always trying to preach to
I
you.
love... There is a photograph I took of you that is
Yeah,
quite
oh,
striking.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It's
Yeah.
him and Tanky, I think, side by side.
Him and me.
Well, no. Well, yes.
Yes.
When you inhabit Tanky, is that like when you inhabit Callan Allen? When you evoke Callan Allen? Anyway, let's get on to the show.
Now do it again.
All right, I'm going to be...
Hello
Sure.
and
All right,
welcome.
okay.
Hello.
Yes, I got it.
Little Seinfeld. Yeah, I locked the car door. You just hear, well, that didn't really work. But
What?
I kind of... It's the octavate.
Okay, but what's the Seinfeld reference?
He octavates.
Whoa.
Oh, okay.
It's like he takes it up an octave.
All right, we're doing
when okay, here we go.
Hello and welcome to episode 110 of the Board Game Barrage podcast.
Have we,
I would
pivoted to the actual...
Yeah, I
what-
would just say I would do like a
What do you guys?
officially. Now we're in the feature top. Like
Oh,
make
actually
a joke,
make
make
a
a
thing?
joke because
Okay.
we think we've never not.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah,
so
yeah,
it's
yeah.
almost
So-
like
okay.
it's almost like
Got it. I got you. Okay.
okay, but let me feed it to you.
Yeah, I got it.
Look how smoothly I transitioned. Almost well.
Okay.
Neelan, that makes sense. No,
Yeah.
but the joke is there. Shut up. You're the best smooth transition man in all the business.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna say
You have the business.
I have the business.
You've
I'm
got
in
the business.
and
You're
good.
the business. What song could we do this time? We did a good song last night.
Yeah.
Did you intentionally put like a bad backing track that
Yeah.
was like clashing with my song?
Wait, there was clashing
I
with the
didn't think
song.
it
It wasn't
was-
clashing.
Yeah, no, it was like off beat.
It wasn't off beat.
With Typify Typify?
You want me to find a perfect beat for Typify Typify?
I was saying you could have done it, and you chose
Okay.
not to deliberately.
Yes.
Christina and I
Because I
were
have a
wondering if
plethora
that was
of
willful.
backbeats at my disposal, and I thought, let me pick the one that's just a little bit off.
Yeah, because you wanted to make me look stupid.
I don't have to do anything to make that happen.
All right.
All right.
And scene.
Okay. So, do you want me to go back to you, Neelan, or do you, this is like secret conversation? Go back to you, Kellen.
Secrets
Since
don't make friends. Okay.
Since Neelan just talked.
Anecdote time.
Okay, go ahead.
Anecdote time.
Go for it.
When you said secrets don't make friends.
I did not say that.
Wait, what did you say?
I said, do you want me to go back to you?
You said this is a secret.
yeah, secret conversation.
Great.
And you said,
done. And then I said,
yeah,
secrets. When I was in 9th grade,
yeah,
me and my best friend had, his name was Mike, by the way.
close to Mark.
Similar. We decided that wouldn't it be cool if our Gmail, well, I don't think we had Gmail, if our Hotmail and our MySpace profiles shared the same password so that we could see what each other was up to.
Okay. Wow.
So we both together changed our passwords.
Two.
Too many secrets. Not a joke. And then we would just we loved it. You know, we were like best bros. And then his cousin found out and wanted in on sharing the password.
Right.
And I said, no, man. And then he told his mother.
Right.
And then I got in trouble and we had to change our passwords so we couldn't share them anymore.
I'm now very worried about at the end of the show saying email us at boardgamebarrage.com.
Well, too many secrets.
Yeah.
So it's like I remember explicitly walking to school, you know, looking over at Mike and just saying, too many secrets.
We should all do that, the three of us.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Bank accounts.
Yeah, perfect. Love it. Okay, so back to the show now.
But you know, that was a real anecdote.
No, I know.
From my
Great.
heart.
Yeah, I'm not debating if it was a real anecdote.
Great.
Okay,
Good.
so now that Neelan talked a lot for Gloomhaven, I'm happy to go back to him.